My name is Todd Barrett, and this is
Bernstein.
Matt Bernstein. I have him here today to talk about himself, his favorite thing to do.
It's true.
No. I want to have a meaningful conversation with him. We've had many before, but I want to capture it. So what I want to talk about today with you is your experience in therapy. Is that cool?
Yeah.
We good?
In recent history of my life, I started going to therapy about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Okay.
When I first moved to New York. The kind of very beginning of my life here in the city, I was dealing with a very intense breakup, which I was 18 and I'd never kind of gone through that before.
So it was your first relationship?
It was my first relationship,
So
you
your
could
first
say. It was like my first love.
Okay. So you moved to the city by yourself, you ended a relationship, or the relationship ended?
Right, yeah. A few months after moving here, I had the onset of a very serious anxiety attack, which I'd never dealt with before. Even when I was dealing with coming out and everything, it was, I'd never dealt with any chronic, clinical, very physical anxiety, which all of a sudden I was dealing with. So that was on top of still being pained over this breakup and kind of a series of not the best decisions just because I was so excited about jumping into the culture of New York.
Sure.
But for me, it was not being able to focus, dissociating. Dissociating was scary. There was a week in November, and one of those days during that week, I was dissociating. And I didn't know what was going on, but it was really, really hard to focus. It was hard to understand how my body felt. It's something that unless you feel it, it's very hard to describe, unless you felt it. And then it after a day, it was over. I was back. I could feel normal. So I didn't think much of it. And then it was the following week in November that came back in full force. I remember I was in one of the NYU buildings and then I was fine, and then I walked out onto the street and all of a sudden I wasn't, and it was so hard. I got dizzy really easily because I was trying to understand my body's position on the sidewalk in relationship to other people.
Yeah, it's really physically disorienting.
About a week after that, I was still feeling really dissociative kind of all the time.
And did you have a group of friends at that point? Yeah. Did you have people to talk to say, "Yo, something's off with me. Can I just sit?
Yeah.
Can you give me a hug or whatever?"
And when I told them about what was going on, because a lot of the people that I knew at the time had dealt with similar things, which was in a way good because they could understand what I was talking about, but it was also normalized and not taken super seriously. When in hindsight, I really needed help because I was going through it. I was really going through it. Through NYU, I found a private practice therapist. I started to feel more in control of the physical symptoms. I changed so many parts of my life that were unhealthy once kind of my body and my brain forced me to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you're describing essentially thriving in the face of some kind of adversity or stress.
Yeah.
But it's not, I think oftentimes people talk about feeling thankful for the shit that they go through because it makes them who they are or a better person, which I think is true. But I don't think you needed to go through that. I think that
when I went to therapy when I was 14, it was I'm stressed and I was maybe dealing with some form of depression, which I understood at the time, but this felt a lot more intense.
I think the other side of that though is, if you're feeling intense, powerful anxiety and dissociation, that's not something that anybody should have to feel or wants to feel. And if there's something that can decrease that, even if it's 10%, 20%, that's a good thing. But so they were saying, try to figure this out on your own.
It was about the stigma behind taking medication for mental illness.
What was the stigma for you?
that I wasn't strong enough, and I felt shame, and I talked about it in therapy before I started taking meds.
And so now, what are you working on in therapy?
I talk about the things that are perpetuating my anxiety, because since the onset of the physical symptoms, they've never fully left. Like, taking care of myself and the right meds and going to therapy has helped a lot, helped me manage it a lot. But it still comes up, like the dissociation feelings and when I get stressed.
Yeah. What about boys? What about relationships?
Well, it's hard to, I'm definitely oriented around dating instead of, hookups. Dating in New York City as a gay man isn't like the easiest.
I mean, I wouldn't know anything about that, but
Yeah, sure.
No, I know a lot about that. But okay, so hookups versus dating.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a place that you feel comfortable residing in?
I know that it's easier to hook up than to date. It just is, and I think anybody who lives here would attest to that.
Easier in what sense? Like, in terms of access?
In terms of access, it's...
Okay. What about in terms of process, like the actual hookup or the
Well, that's
actual
different.
date?
I mean, in terms of access, it's like you download Grindr and...
Wait, what's that? No. You download Grindr.
I'm like, have you heard of it?
Okay. So you're not looking for hookups, but you are looking to read Grindr's Wikipedia page.
Right. Well, I actually think Grindr as a culture and Grindr as like an integral part of like queer culture is fascinating.
It is.
But the actual usage of it is not for me. I haven't had it on my phone in a while. I used to. I attach more kind of emotion and emotional intimacy with sex. And it's not that I don't like sex. I do. But but I prefer to get to know someone, which, dare I say, is not the norm in the community here. I think anxiety comes from loneliness. Because
Is that where your anxiety comes from?
Just part of it, yeah. I mean, I definitely feel lonely, and then I can sometimes like project that loneliness onto like my future. I'll start thinking, oh well, I'll be single as long as I live here, and so kind of stuff like that, overthinking.
Yeah. How does your anxiety come up? So it's loneliness, but what about specifically when you are trying to date and maybe do you get pressured a lot to hook up? How does that come out?
I think queer bodies in general, there's a lot of sexualization of, and it can be frustrating because like and there's conversation for predatory behavior from heterosexual men towards women. Mm-hmm. And I felt this way with other men before, that it's like I want to be able to own, like to feel confident about my body without giving people the impression that like I just want to have sex.
So dating and relationships, it's hard as a gay man in New York,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people, they do expect sex, I think, right? That's what you were saying.
Yes.
And you feel like others are sexualizing you in ways that you do not identify with.
I know it's not true, but it can get confusing, and then I get confused, like, oh, what should I be focusing on? Should I be going to the gym more? So, yeah, there's just a lot of thoughts that, like, ideally shouldn't be happening. But yeah.
Well, it's not that they shouldn't be happening. They probably should be happening, so you can deal with whatever it is that's coming up and learn more about yourself.
I would like for them not to happen.
Well, I would like for them not to happen too, but it sounds like you're learning a lot from them. The one last thing that I'm curious about is, how does your Instagram contribute to your anxiety?
It's how I make money. So that's when I talk about anxiety over work, that is what I'm referring to. So yes, first and foremost, I love it. Because everyone has highs and lows with work. But when I have it, it feels like I'm having those highs and lows in front of an audience, because I am. Which is kind of a weird feeling, and like, it feels intense sometimes to be, everything that I choose to post, a lot of people see. Yeah, I think I am afraid sometimes of criticism, which I do get. You know, I get healthy criticism, which is constructive, and I've also been called every name you can think of and more.
Thank you for sharing all of this stuff with me and everybody else. You really did learn a lot about yourself, and I think just being able to get through that is a huge accomplishment. I think it's really cool that you pushed yourself to go to therapy, that you grew, you challenged yourself, and you're still challenging yourself, and as a result you're still growing, which is awesome. You know, and I think it's pretty rare for 20-year-olds to be that insightful emotionally.
I think so.
So, you know, I think it's a good thing.